everyone, welcome back to our next tutorial, and today it is the Route 1970 by Shamballa Designs. This is an amazing satchel pattern. It's a great unisex design and it used some of those bits of hardware that you may have seen in your collection that you've kind of collected over the years like me, and it's a great way to use them. So what we have here is our main flap, which uses magnetic snaps to close it. It has a front slip pocket, very handy, kind of hidden as well. Inside, you have options for a Welt pocket and a zipper pocket. You can choose one, you can choose both, you can choose none. That adventure is up to you. On the rear, another slip pocket, great for phone, keys, wallet, just easy to reach. And our sides, nice strong magnetic snaps, just little side pockets. Again, really good just for those easy access things, and it really does create a beautiful silhouette on this bag. Now, the front has this gorgeous buckle feature. It is aesthetic, but I love it. I really do love it, and I love using these sort of buckles. So it comes together really quite easily and quickly, and it's a great way to showcase those beautiful fabrics that you've had in your collection for a while that you've been meaning to use. You can use an adjustable crossbody strap like I have, or a shorter one and fixed. Up to you on that one. So in the description, I'll link up the pattern link. Go and do yourself a favor, grab a copy of this pattern amongst all her other amazing ones. Cut out your fabric, interface, stabilize, and then let's get sewing. Welcome back to our latest tutorial, and today it is the Route 1970 by Shamballa Designs. Now this is a fantastic unisex design. It's like a satchel bag. It's a crossbody shoulder bag, has heaps of pockets, really handy, and it uses some really fantastic techniques. So for my materials today, I have a few different colors. My main feature is going to be this gorgeous nautical themed water resistant canvas by Inklings in the Kraken Australia. For highlights, I'm using a suede vinyl in this beautiful tan color. And my lining, I'm using Vibrant View waterproof canvas by Sophisticated in Singapore. It's lightweight, it's waterproof, it's very easy to work with. There are my materials. Let's go over to hardware. All right, let's talk hardware. So there's a few different things you're going to need, and maybe a couple of new hardware options that you may not have used in the past, mainly being our buckle. So you're going to need one with a 25mm gap in between and one with the center bar. That is very important. There's a couple of different types available. We want the one with the center bar. If you want to make your crossbody strap adjustable, you'll need a tri-glide. You'll need 2 swivel clasps. I'm aiming for a 38mm wide webbing strap. I'll be honest, I don't know which print or color I'm going to go for yet. I'm going to do it at the end, that way I can see how the bag's feeling. So you're going to need 2 of those. You're going to need a couple of lengths of zipper tape, I believe it's 7 and 9 inches, 2 zipper pulls, 4 magnetic snaps, I'm using 18mm wide ones for those, 2 D-rings. What else do we need? 4 bag feet, which are optional. You do not have to do the bag feet, but if you want to, you need 4 of those. And some rivets as well, of course. I don't often explain about rivets. It's kind of one of those things where I assume that people use them, but hey. All right, so let's get started sewing. For this, we're going to need to do some preparation. So go ahead and grab your strap loop, your strap connectors, buckle connector, and your flap accent strips, and we'll prepare those first. Okay, first up in our sewing, we need to prepare a few different things. So I have my buckle connector, my strap loops, my flap accent strip, and my 2 strap connectors here. I've drawn a center line through each of those. I'm going to grab some double-sided tape, pop it down over that drawn line on each single piece. So go ahead and do that. Now once you have done that, we're going to peel the backing off our pieces and pull the long raw edges towards that line so they meet in the middle. I'll show you one. I'm not going to bore you with all of them. So let's go with the buckle connector, hey? So pulling the backing off, fold that long raw edge towards the center, meeting that center line. So once you've done that for all of them, we're just going to pop them aside. Now, if you don't feel like your double-sided tape will hold for very long, please feel free just to leave it for now. Still apply your double-sided tape, but you can peel off the backing and stick down those edges later. All right, so there is our first one. That is our buckle connector. There you go, nice and neat. So you can go ahead and do all those, but otherwise we're going to start off sewing with our smallest piece, which is our strap loop. So go ahead and prepare that and we'll get sewing with it. Okay, first things first is this tiny little strap loop. So I have folded those long raw edges into that center line and pressed them down. Now, all we're going to do, take it back to your sewing machine and top stitch 1/8 of an inch around all 4 sides. Next up, we'll be using our buckle connector. So go do that, grab your buckle connector on the way back and we'll work with that next. All right, there is my cute little strap loop all sewn up. I'm going to put that somewhere safe. It's so little, I'm scared of losing it. So I'll pop it over there. And now we're going to grab our buckle connector. So this is the one that I've already folded the edges in. From the top edge, I've made a mark 3/4 of an inch down. Now I'm just going to unclip and then I'm just going to grab some double-sided tape and just pop, not even to halfway. So below that line, just down the center there. I might do a little bit more. Because we're folding this strap in half, we do want it to stick. So peel the backing off, making sure you can still see that line. Take the bottom edge, fold it up to meet that 3/4 of an inch line and just carefully fold it in half, making sure that it's nicely on top of each other. All right, so go ahead and do that. And then we are going to need to grab our V template. So this is a little piece of paper that was with the paper pattern pieces. It's a template for a V end. So what we're going to do is from the right hand side, we're going to pop it on, line it up with that bottom folded edge and just draw the angles on. So go ahead and do that. Find a paper piece, draw on those little angles, and then I'll explain a little bit more about what's happening next. Okay, I have drawn my lines on. So this is going to give me a guide as to where to stitch. So we're going to take it back to the machine now. And with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, we're going to stitch down the long side, across here. So 1/8 of an inch in from those lines and then back up. So using that as a guide. Go ahead and do that and then come back and we'll finish this gorgeous little strap off. Okay, there we go. I have stitched down, across and back up. Now we are going to cut along these lines. So try and leave just a little tiny tip down the bottom at this point that isn't cut. This is just going to make it a lot easier to finish. This is where I take a big deep breath in, wish me luck. Sharp scissors, one straight cut. Whew. All right, and other side. I always like to think my scissors have a straight edge and I don't think I could have left a smaller little point. That's going to be hard to see. Now what I'm going to do, as much as I honestly don't love edge painting, I really don't, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edge paint these. I just don't want that raw edge look. I love the angle, I love the point. I think that is a huge feature of this bag. I just don't want those raw edges, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And when we come back, we're going to need that beautiful buckle. We're going to need our buckle. because we're going to attach it. All right, my first coat of edge paint is on. It is wet, so I am going to be very careful with how I hold this, but I couldn't wait to show you. I have made a mark and punched a hole 3 1/8 of an inch down from that top. So from that top raw edge, it's 8 centimeters down. I'm now going to grab my buckle. So right side up, pin down. Going to pop it through that top hole. On the reverse side, I'm going to get the buckle. Sometimes it can be a little bit fiddly. I often struggle with getting this right the first time, to be honest. Buckles aren't something that I use a lot. Honestly, probably use them most in the Shamballa patterns. That's what I kind of love about them though. And then when I'm feeling brave, oh goodness, wish me luck. I don't want to mess up my edge coat. I'm going to go super slow, super slow. There we go. And pop it through. Ta-da! How gorgeous is that? All I'm probably going to do is firstly let my edge paint dry. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'll probably just make that hole slightly bigger just because that prong is quite big. So that's all we need to do with that one for now. We can pop that aside, admire your work, and next we're going to work on our strap connectors. So go ahead and grab those and your 2 D or triangular rings. Okay, onto our strap connector preparation. So I've folded the long raw edges to the center there. I've made a mark from the top 3 inches down. We're going to get our D-ring. I'm going to pop a little tiny piece of double-sided tape just at the line for the moment. So this is still in that preparation stage. We're going to peel the backing off, fold the top edge down to meet that line, and then I'm just going to pop a line of double-sided tape there just to hold it in place. And I'll repeat with this one. So peeling the back off, folding that top edge down, and double-sided tape. Now that's prepped, you can pop that aside. That is all there is to that one. Next, let's prepare our flap accent strip. All right, our flap accent strip, double-sided tape in the center, folding those long raw edges into the center, making sure it's nice and even. So this is quite a prominent part. That's why I've also chosen this gorgeous suede vinyl. I'm having a moment with suede vinyl. I could count on one hand how many times I've used it prior to this year, and then suddenly I feel like I'm using it a lot. In fact, I'm currently cutting another project that uses it, so go figure, hey? All right, that's folded in, more double-sided tape in the center. There we go, trying to keep it out of the top stitching line. Press nice and firm, so make sure it's going to stick. If you don't have confidence with your double-sided tape, look, clip it, that's fine. All right. That's all there is to that one. Next, we're going to start making the main front panel. So prep work is done, onto the sewing. So go ahead and find your front panel top and the front panel bottom, and we'll pop them together. All right, we have our front panel top. I have that in my main print, and front panel bottom, which is in our lining. We're going to pop these right sides together. Just going to make sure I have the bottom of that. It's one of those prints that when it's in a bigger piece, it's actually really, really easy to see which direction it goes. But when I cut it smaller, and plus it is late at night, that probably doesn't help. Okay, pop those together, lining them up. We're going to take it back to the machine. We're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Go ahead and do that and come back. All right, I have sewn it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I've just clipped the corners to reduce bulk. We're going to fold this part up, pressing the bottom and the seam allowance down. I'm going to press it because I can, and then I'm going to top stitch through the bottom with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So go ahead and do that. Now, once you've done that, grab your stabilizer. So if you're using a fusible stabilizer like Decaville, you can apply it to the back there. Now, I put a note at the start of this video, just a bit of prep work. So because Shamballa Patterns generally uses a drop-in lining, so we need to make marks for our drop-down lining placement as well as flap placement. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go back to the start, pause it, have a look at what we need to do. But otherwise, apply your stabilizer and then we'll move on. we have our magnetic snap markings, and down the bottom we have our rivet placement markings. So I've gone ahead and punched these already. We're going to need our strap loop, as my hair goes everywhere, and from each end we punch a hole 7 mil in, so 1/4 inch in. We grab a rivet, we'll grab both actually, and pop it through the back there. So if you're like me and you don't punch them very well, there we go. Now what I might do, because my fabric is canvas, look, I'm not worried about it fraying because this is kind of a fixed item. It's not going to move. It's just really a decorative thing. But I have these little, what would you call them? Washers, plastic washers, I guess. I'm just going to go back. I'm going to take these out and pop them through. This is just going to give me a little bit extra strength from the back of it there. All right, that's all I'm going to do. If you haven't seen these before, I think I just got them from eBay. I honestly think they were that sort of thing. All right, now we are going to get our strap loop. Once your rivets are in place, we want our strap loop wrong sides up, so right sides together. Pop it on the outside, because when you think about this, we are going to roll it over and attach it like that. So right sides together, pop your cap on, go ahead and set that rivet. So go set that, then when we come back, we'll set the opposite end. Push it through the hole, pop your rivet cap on. Now you may need to manipulate this under your press or your handheld press, but go ahead and set that one now. And then when we come back, we're going to need our magnetic snaps because we're going to pop those on. My strap loop is now in place. Rivets are holding it nice and firmly, and I love it. I love that color combination. Now I've just marked the magnetic snap placement on the back so you can see. For this one, we're going to get our washer. We're going to align it, center over our markings. Just make little marks where these are going to go. Perfect. Sharp scissors, fold it in half. Little snip, so bare minimum. You don't want to make it too big, just the tiniest little portion so the prongs can go through. There we go. Okay, we'll turn it over. We want our female side. So if you don't understand what that means, it's the part with the in bit. We are going to push it through. Now you can use some fray stop or fabric glue if you're worried about your fabric fraying. I'm not with this one, especially because I've interfaced it. We're going to push it through. There we go. I may have not cut enough. That's okay. It's just resisting at the interfacing. There we go. Fold it on over. Now this is where scraps of Decaville can come in handy. So I have a bag over in my corner here that is just full of these, like offcuts of Decaville. I rarely throw much out because there's always a use for it. So we're just going to cut. I'll cut amounts for both. Just rectangles, doesn't need to be precise. Grab your washer, make more marks, cut it the same. This time you can be a little bit more generous with your cuts. Pop it over the prongs, get your washer, put your washer on, and bend those prongs outwards. Like, depends. Some people like to bend them inwards. I like to bend them outwards. I feel like it reduces the bulk there. Then grab some duct tape, like my obnoxiously large roll of it. I did ask my husband to grab some, so he did grab the biggest roll he could find. Okay, it's a new day today. It got a little bit late last night and I was quite tired, so I cut it short. Now we're just going to finish off this part of the panel. So we have our strap loop attached. We have our 2 magnetic snaps. We need to get our buckle connector. I have marked a halfway point. I'm just going to pop it through that strap loop. Make sure I'm happy with the height. If I have this all the way down, it's going to hit there. So I'm just going to have it up a little bit. About there is good. I'm going to clip it. And then we're going to take it back to our sewing machine and baste across the top. So go ahead and do that. Then on your way back, we need our slip pocket exterior top. So make sure you gather that and come back. My buckle connector is now basted on. I have my slip pocket exterior top. I'm going to flip it so it is right sides together with the bottom part. We're going to clip across the top, matching up those ends, just letting it lay naturally. All right. Once you have done that, we're going to take it back to the machine and we are going to stitch across with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to back stitch a couple of times across that buckle connector. Then when we've done that, we will top stitch. But first, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, I've sewn across the top with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I'm just going to cut those top corners at an angle, avoiding cutting the stitches. Then we're going to flip this on up. Now we want our seam allowance to stay up as well because we are now going to top stitch through the top here with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Just take your time, make sure it's sitting nicely. Go ahead and do that. Then on your way back, we're going to need to grab our slip pocket lining. All right, there is that part, top stitched nicely. No skip stitches, thank goodness. Now we're going to get our slip pocket lining. We're going to pop it right sides together with the top. Clip along the top there. There we go. Pretty much repeating the process. Sew along the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, we're going to flip it on up and we're going to top stitch through the lining section just with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So go and do those 2 steps and then come back. There is my lining now sewn and top stitched. What we're going to do now is fold this wrong sides together. So meet both of those rounded edges together and we're going to clip all the way around just to secure it. You see my cutting wasn't exactly perfect, but really it doesn't matter. I'm not worried. And just press it down just gently with your hands. If you can press it, awesome. If not, don't. I'm not going to press vinyl. I'm not that silly. That would melt it and it would make me sad. All right, so we're going to clip all the way around. Now we've got a couple of steps that we need to go through to finish off this panel. So once I've clipped it, I shall explain. We want to baste around the bottom section. So basting with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Go ahead and do that. And then once you have done your basting stitch, so just a nice long stitch length, we're going to top stitch along the top here twice. First one at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then the next one 1/8 inch down again. So at an 1/8 inch and a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance from that top edge there. Go ahead and do that, and then you're going to need to gather your front panel that we finished earlier and we'll put it all together. All right, I have top stitched it in place. I'm really loving it. Now, I can't be the only one that thinks it looks a little bit like a face. Prove me wrong. All right, we're going to get our front panel now that we completed earlier, the one with the decaville. Then we're going to pop this on top. Simple as that. Line up the bottoms, clip in place, and then once you're clipped, just go ahead and baste it. That's all we need to do for now. Then we can pop that aside and we're going to start working on our flap. So you're going to need your flap A bottom and top as well. So if you're doing those 2 parts, also grab the lining, but otherwise go ahead and baste and then gather your flap pieces together. Okay, there is my completed front panel. So I'm going to pop that one aside for now while we move on with our flap. So I have my top part of my flap here and my feature leatherette down the bottom. Now, I am going to be doing a birthed version. So if you wanted it raw edge, so if you're using vinyl, you can do so. You just make sure you cut it without that seam allowance, but I'm going to be doing it like this. So we're going to line them up Flip it so it is right sides together. Clip across there. Make sure it's all lining up. I think I was very crooked with my cutting on this one, but that's okay. My seam allowance will take up the discrepancy. Now we're going to sew across there with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, turn it out and top stitch through this feature part of your flap with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, there is my flap exterior. So I top stitched, also applied my logo. Now for the lining, use a paper pattern piece to get your magnetic snap placement, then install those. So same as I did for the front slip pocket, I used my washer as a guide. I cut holes, put it through, some Decaville, washer, prongs outwards, and then some duct tape. Now, I am also using a sew-in stabilizer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my lining and exterior first, then I'll pop my stabilizer in. Obviously, if you're using Decaville, a fusible product, apply it now. So I'm going to get these right sides together, lining up the bottom, making sure it's nice and straight and even. I'm going to clip around. And once I've done that, back to the machine, and we're going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, leaving the top open. So go down the sides, around the bottom, and back up to the top, back stitching at the top, and use a fairly small stitch length around the corners, just so you get a nice, neat finish. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back. Okay, there is my flap stitched together. I'm just going to get my pinking shears and cut into these bottom corners, just so when we turn it, it's just a little bit smoother. Otherwise, if you don't have pinking shears, you can of course just use some scissors to cut some notches. Then I might also do these top angles as well, because why not, really? Alright, so like I said, if you're using vinyl, just follow the instructions and just join it together. Then you can edge coat or whatever you want to do there. So now I'm going to turn it right sides out. Hope for the best. Just being gentle on my logo tag. Perfect. Alright, use your hands just to push it out. Smooth out those corners. Okay, I'm going to take this back to the machine. I'm going to give it a press from the reverse side. So I'm going to press it from my lining side, make sure it's nice and neat. Then I'm going to go ahead and top stitch all the way around with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. I'll also insert my stabilizer, make sure that all fits in place, and then I'll close the top. Once you've done that, we're going to move on with our back zipper pocket. Okay, now that our front flap is done, let's move on with the back. So I've done a little bit of preparation work. We need to get some double-sided tape and apply it to the top of the back bottom, both top and bottom of the back top, and on the right hand side of the back zipper pocket, just top and bottom. So go ahead and do that. I'm just trying to get rid of that hair, it's annoying me. Go ahead and do that. Then we're going to need our zipper and our zipper tabs. So it's the 7-inch zipper. Go ahead and grab that. Let's get it all ready to go. Okay, for our zipper, we're going to need to pop our zipper pull on. So make sure that is done straight away. Do it now. Don't wait. We've got our 2 zipper tabs. Make sure they're oriented the direction that you want them to go. We're going to pop these right sides together with our zipper and just clip them on. Same with that one. Make sure the short ends are matching up. Put them in place. Then back to the machine. Sew across the zipper tab these short ends with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Fold the zipper tabs out and then just top stitch them 1/8 inch seam allowance. When you come back, grab your bottom of your back zipper pocket and also your zipper pocket lining. Alright, my zipper tabs are now sewn. I'm just going to do a little bit of prep work. So I'm going to fold this in half and mark the center point. Same with my zipper. I like it to be perfectly in the center. I'm probably a little bit OCD about that, to be honest. I think it matters, especially when you're talking small margins, and by trade I've been in the building industry for, I'm not going to give away my age, but almost 20 years of my working life, which isn't my entire working life, and my job there is very detail oriented. Alright, we're going to peel away the backing of our double-sided tape. Speaking of details, I can't even get the back of my double-sided tape off. Oh goodness. Might need to roll fast forward on this one, who knows. There we go. Okay, we got it in the end. That did not adhere very well at all, did it? Close enough is good enough though on that one. Alright, so get your zipper, figure out which way you want your zipper pull going. I'm going to close to the left, match up those center points and just evenly press it down and across. So use a double-sided tape, make sure it's sticking nicely, take your time with it. Again, a nice straight zipper as well is always good. I'm just going to pop a clip at each end because I don't trust this double-sided tape at all at the moment. Alright, so leave that there for now. Then grab your zipper pocket, same thing. I'm just going to mark a center point. I'm going to also press my double-sided tape down so it really sticks this time. Right sides together, mark that center point, match it up, press it across, there. Alright, so go ahead and do that. Now that's all we need to do just for this step. We will be attaching it further in a second, so don't stress about that. We're going to go back to the machine and we are going to now sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, my zipper pocket has been sewn with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to press it up and then we're going to press it over. Now if you can press your fabric, now is a good time to do so because we want that line to be really nice and neat. So go ahead and press it if you can, and then we're going to top stitch along the bottom here with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. I've top stitched along the top here. Now on the rear, I've already got excited and peeled off the backing off my double-sided tape. We're going to fold it up to meet that top zipper edge. Take it back to your machine and just baste across the top there. I obviously didn't do that too straight. Then we're going to pull up our front panel. Try and sew as close up to the zip as you can get without sewing over the fabric. So just to the bottom there. Use a 1/4 inch to 1 centimeter seam allowance. Sew down both sides of this zipper pocket to close it up. All right, so both sides there and baste it along the top. Alright, my zipper pocket is now secured. Now it comes time to attaching the top portion. So make sure that your marks are in place, so your flap accent mark and also your flap placement mark. That's the other word I was after. I'm just going to also mark the halfway point as per usual, just to make sure that our placement is accurate. Alright, make sure you have it oriented the correct way. Like I said, I'm struggling. I don't know why I'm struggling with the direction of this print, because it's pretty obvious when you see the ships, but I think if the ships aren't in there, it almost could go either way, really. Okay. Right sides together, line up our center markings, press it across, making sure that it is nice and straight. It's really starting to take shape now. It's a brilliant pattern. I do love this one. I've made it a few times. Okay, Back to the machine, sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, flip it on up and then top stitch with a 1/8 inch seam allowance through that top portion. Alright, so we have now attached the back top there. I have my placement markings from the pattern piece, so we have our flap placement markings. So what we're going to do is grab our flap. On the wrong side, I will pop some double-sided tape along the top. I honestly think this might actually be a really bad batch of double-sided tape because it does not want to stick. Quite frustrating. And then, as long as you've popped your markings accurately from your pattern piece, pop your flap down. There will be time in between this to just make sure that it is center. Press it down. Go ahead and just make sure that it is center, okay? So use your ruler tape just to measure it. Once you're happy with the placement of it, just go ahead and baste along the top here. Do a couple of rows if you want, because our flap accent piece will be next sewn onto the top of that. All right, now that our flap is basted in place, we're going to grab our flap accent piece. I'm going to peel off the double-sided tape. Now you should have your markings. We're going to place the strip just below those markings. So the top of the strip will be in line with those markings, not centered. Ooh, I love it. All right, once you have done that, back to your machine again. A lot of back and forth with this one, but we're going to sew along the long edges with a 1/8 inch seam allowance top stitch. Once you've done that, we're going to move on to making our side gussets. Okay, there is my flap accent piece top stitched on. I'm just going to trim down my zipper tabs. And then the last bit of prep, if you haven't already, go ahead and apply your stabilizer to the back. I did it before, forgot to mention it, sorry, but you can do that now. And again, just make sure your 3/4 inch fold down mark is drawn on. All right, go ahead and grab your side gusset pieces and connectors and we shall start working on that one. Time to work on our side gussets. So I have my side gusset piece. I have marked centers and just drawn a line 1/2 inch over just to give me an alignment line for my side connector. On the side connector, we need to draw a line 3 3/4 inch up from the bottom. That's going to give us a stitching guide line. Peel the backing off your tape. Press it down so it's center and running center from top to bottom. Push, push, push. Then we're going to go back to the machine and we're going to top stitch 1/8 inch up, pivoting at that line and then back down. Repeat the process for both of your side gussets. All right, there we go. I'm loving the look of these. I really love the antique hardware. Anyway, no time for that. We're going to attach our gusset bottom to our side gussets. So pop these right sides together. So lining up that straight short end down the bottom. Same with that one. I'm cramming in as much sewing as I can today before I need to go do school pickup. All right, back to the machine. Sew across the bottom with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So do the same for both of those, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, we're gonna unfold it and top stitch through the side gusset bottom. There's our side gussets. Now, before we go ahead and attach our magnetic snaps and rivets, we need to go and fuse our stabilizer to the back of that. So go ahead and fuse that or attach it however you're going to. Then on your way back, grab your magnetic snaps, 2 of those female ones, the washers, and a couple of rivets. Okay, I have fused my Decaville to the back. Now we're going to mark and put in our magnetic snaps. So we want to do these center widthwise and 1 inch up from the seam. Once you've made your marking, so it should fit nicely just between those top stitching lines. So pop it on. Now these are optional. I mean, everything's voluntary in sewing. These are optional. You don't have to do the magnetic snaps if you don't want to. I just like the shape that they give the bag. So we're going to go ahead. Now you probably will be cutting through a few layers. I've got 2 layers of vinyl and Decaville and my fabric. So if you need to grab something sharp to poke through there. I'm just looking for my unpicker, but of course it's not going to be close by. Anyway, once you've done that, we're going to be attaching our female side of our magnetic snap here. Alright, the next part of our construction for our side gussets is our side gusset pockets. So we have our main piece here. We'll just work with one. Make sure you've made your marking for your magnetic snap. I have my lining, and we're going to pop these right sides together. Obviously one is bigger than the other. It is designed like that. Clip across the top. We're going to do the same process for both of those. Over to the machine, sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, flip it on up and then top stitch through the lining piece. Do the same for both of those. Alright, so we have attached our pocket linings and we have top stitched as well. Now, we're just going to get the wrong sides together, fold it in half. So you'll notice that your exterior pocket does come over towards the back. Do the same for both of those. Now you will ideally, if you can, press this just to make sure that you're getting a nice straight clean line across there. And then on each of these we're going to do 2 rows of top stitching. One 1/8 of an inch from the top and the second 1/4 of an inch from the top. Go ahead and do that, and then just double check again that your markings for your magnetic snap are in place, because we'll be attaching those next. Okay, I have top stitched both of these twice, so one at the 1/8, one at a 1/4 inch. Now we're going to go ahead and attach our magnetic snaps. Now it can be a little tricky, obviously, because we are quite close to that top stitching line, but just take your time with this. We're going to get our washers and center them over our markings as per usual. Pop a line down to denote where to cut. Some sharp scissors, separate the pieces, of course. Wouldn't want to cut through the front. And just, again, be careful. Take your time with this. If you need to clip it, do so. If not, I'm just trying to see where my markings are. I lost them for a sec. Little snips, so the smallest that you can. And this time we're going to be popping on our male snaps. Pop them through. Turn to the wrong side. If you have some Decaville, just a scrap, doesn't need to be anything spectacular whatsoever. I like to cut mine quite long when I'm using these 18mm ones, because the prongs always seem to feel a little bit longer than I expect them to be. So especially if you're using cotton canvas, I think it's very important that you use just a bit of Decaville just to protect the back of that. All right, washer on, bend the prongs outward to reduce bulk, and then just a little bit of duct tape, masking tape, painter's tape, something, just to protect the back. And then you are done for now. So do the same for the other one. And then when we come back, we are going to look at attaching our outer side pockets to our side gussets. Let's move on with attaching our side pockets to our side gussets. So grabbing one of those, you can baste around your side pocket if you think that's going to be easier for you to work with. That is perfectly fine. First step, line it up along the bottom there. You will notice that is going to snap in place quite nicely, which makes it handy for lining up. Just even up the bottom there, clip across, and then just with a very small seam allowance, 1/8 of an inch, just go ahead and baste across the bottom only for now. Okay, I have attached the bottom just with a long basting stitch. Now we need to come and attach our sides. Now on the paper pattern piece, there is some indicators of the maximum height that your side pockets can go to, but they're also really handy to make sure that you're lining them up evenly. So if you can mark those, you can keep your magnetic snap together if your material allows it. And then we can just bend the fabric so it almost pivots on itself. I might actually undo that. And just line up the sides. So you can do one side at a time and then baste it and then go back and do the other side if that's what works for you. You just figure out what you want to do and just make sure that your pockets are coming up evenly and that when you have your magnetic snap attached, that it's not going to be wavy. So do the same for both. Pivot. Just try not to yank on it. Try and just let the fabric fall naturally so that it lays flat as well. Alright. So you're going to be doing the same process for both. So clip along the edges. It can be tricky to do this and talk at the same time. Alright. I got it. Don't worry. I got it. Clip along the edges. Make sure it's nice and even. Once you've done that, take it back to your machine and just baste those sides as well. Do the same for both of your pockets. Alright, there are my sides. Looking really, really good. So I'm happy with those. Holding nicely. And there's enough strength in that canvas, but it will still hold its shape. But give it a bit of flow and feel. I like them. Alright. Pop those aside. We're getting closer to finishing our exterior. So what we need to do first is our base. I am doing purse feet. So I've gone ahead and punched holes. I've just used a little bit of double-sided tape to hold my stabilizer on the back. I'm going to go ahead and install my purse feet. If you're not doing purse feet, ignore this step and we'll move on with the next one. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and do that and then I'll come back and I think we're going to start putting this gusset together. Okay, my base is done with minimal super glue on my hair, so that's always a good thing. I always like to super glue the screws to these screw-in ones just to really make sure that they're going to stay put. Okay, let's put our gusset together. So we have our base. I'm going to pop my gusset as I want to be attached. So raw edges together, flip it on over, line it up and clip. Once you've done that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take it back to our machine and sew this with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once you've done that, repeat the process with the other side. I've sewn my gusset together now. I'm going to open it out. Our seam allowance we want folded towards the base, so inwards, back to the machine and sew through the base with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do the same for both sides of those. And then on your way back, we're going to grab our main panels because we're going to put our exterior all together. Okay, my gusset is now done, so I have top stitch there. Let's find some centers. So we're going to find the center of either side of our base, just with a little snip right within the seam allowance as well. And then we'll probably start off with our main front panel, I guess, yeah. Sounds as good as any. I'm just going to make a snip in the center. Alright, so we want to go ahead and we want to firstly start by matching that bottom center. I think this is always the easiest way to do it. Rather than trying to match up the top and then hope for the best when it comes to that center, start off even if it is just one clip in that bottom center. You want to go ahead and do that and then we're going to come around and match up the top side, pop a clip or two there, and then the other side. There we go. All right, so once you have clipped those 3 key points, go ahead and distribute that gusset evenly around your panel. Having done that, we're going to take it back to the machine. I'd recommend basting this first, especially when we're dealing with curves like this. So baste first with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Then once you've done that, we'll do our proper stay stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. there is my front panel all sewn to my gusset, and it fit beautifully. I did do little snips into the corners just to help it curve around the edges there, but really nothing major. Okay, now that that one's attached, we're going to go ahead and attach our back panel. So this one is a little bit trickier just because you have the bulk of that flap there. So if you need to, just bend that flap and clip it together. But same thing, we're going to find the center of the bottom there. We are going to find some scissors, clip into it. Once you've done that, go ahead and just do the exact same process as you did for that front panel. So start by clipping those centers, go around, clip those top edges, just making sure that that flap is out of the stitching way. So you will need to just be a bit more careful on this side. Clip it, distribute it, clip the gusset corners should you need to, and then we can go ahead and sew around it. Exact same process, baste first, then 1/4 inch seam allowance around. And there is my exterior gusset all sewn together. Now I'm just going to get some pinking shears and just cut around those bottom corners just to help those curves. I want it to curve nicely. Sometimes if we don't reduce some of the bulk on the corners, they can just get a little bit misshapen. Not what we want. After all this effort, we are going to make sure it looks as good as possible. So I'm just going to clip any excess there. Perfect. Now you don't have to go ahead and trim the seam allowances if you don't want to. I am going to just a little bit. However, I'm going to stop at that top marking there. All right. So just cutting away and just leaving that top bit above the line just to make sure that we got plenty of purchase when we come to folding over for our drop-in lining. So same thing, go around doing all this. Trim your seam allowances, taper off towards the top. Once you've done that, we're going to get our double-sided tape. We'll pop it on just above the line. So later on when we come to folding it down, it'll all be done. Then you can turn it right sides out, admire your work. And next we're going to move on with our welt pocket. All right, onto our welt pocket. Now these pockets are completely optional. So I am doing the welt and the zipper pocket because I love pockets, but you don't have to do them. All right, for our welt pocket, we're going to need a main lining panel, our welt pocket facing, our welt strip, which I've already pre-pressed, and our welt pocket lining. But first we're going to get started on the facing piece. Make a couple of marks on your main lining, one down the center and then a horizontal line 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters from that top edge. On your facing piece, draw lines 3/4 of an inch in from each edge. That'll give you a nice rectangle. Once we've done that, we'll mark the centers and line them up. So lining up the top of our welt pocket strip, or welt pocket facing I should say, with that line. Pin it and then back to your machine and with a small stitch length sew that rectangle around there. Go ahead and do that. Then we shall cut it out and press it. So when we are cutting this out, just as a visual, the lines are triangles in the short ends and then a line connecting each. So our process is sew the rectangle and then we cut out along those lines, through the middle, along those lines, cutting as close to the stitches as you can, but not through the stitches. My rectangle is now sewn and I have cut along those lines, so the triangle and then one long intersecting line there. We're going to fold our facing to the back, pull it through, heat up your iron. It's very hard to do, but I'm trying to show you. What we want to do is fold and iron it so we can't see any of the facing from the front. Roll the seam out, making sure it's nice and flat. Go ahead and iron all the way around that. Once you're happy with that, we're going to come back. We're going to grab our Welt pocket strip and our pocket lining. I have ironed the box. I'm really happy with that. It turned out nicely and crisp. And now we're going to get our Welt pocket strip. So I have ironed this in half, wrong sides together, and I've just used some hemming tape to hold it nice and taut. You can use double-sided tape, but because I'm using cotton canvas, I can iron it. So we're going to flip our main lining to the rear. On the right side of our Welt pocket strip, down the bottom, so on the raw ends, apply some double-sided tape. Peel off the backing, and then I think the hardest part for me is peeling off the backing. All right, did I achieve it? No. See what happens when I try and do something clever. All right, let's try from the other end. I think I mentioned in my last video, I've got a bad batch of double-sided tape. I swear, it just does not want to stick. Okay, so we've got our double-sided tape. We have our Welt pocket opening. Pop the double-sided tape down, and we want to align the top edge of our Welt pocket strip just underneath the top edge of our opening there. I keep calling it a zipper box, a Welt pocket opening. Because, so center it on, press it down. From the right side, when we open this pocket, we'll be reaching through the top there. So we just want to see that top folded edge sitting really just slightly below the top there. So go ahead and do that. Make sure you're happy with it. If you're not, just reposition it if you need to. Come back here once you've done that. We'll need our pocket lining and some more double-sided tape. Now that your Welt pocket strip is positioned, we're going to get our pocket lining. On the right sides, you need 2 strips of double-sided tape, 1 at each short end. Flip this over back to the wrong side. Peel off the backing to one end of your double-sided tape on your lining, and then we're going to get our pocket and pop it right sides down. So right side of pocket is to wrong side of main lining panel. Align this short raw edge with the bottom edge of your Welt pocket facing, or strip, sorry. Press it down, so make sure it's center. Now if you want to, you can pin, you can clip, do whatever you need. If you don't trust your double-sided tape like me, I would recommend though, pinning this, clipping it, or just holding it so it stays up. We want it out of the way. Then we're going to go back to our machine, and we are going to stitch just along the bottom here underneath our Welt pocket lining opening. So start about 1/8 of an inch beyond this line here, go across and stop at the other end. So just the bottom for now. Okay, I've sewn along the bottom there, looking really nice and neat. Next step, now if you want to, you can press it at this stage. I'm just going to use my hands to show you. So just pressing down. Then we're going to peel off the double-sided tape from the other end. Can I do it more successfully this time? Hey. All right, fold it up. And I'm going to fold it up to meet almost the top of my Welt pocket facing. I really just want to make sure I got enough on the top there to catch in my top stitch. So once you've done that and you're happy with it, we're going to finish our top stitching. Starting where one of our last stitches finished, go up the short end, cross the top, and back down to meet the other end. Go ahead and do that and come back, and we'll talk about how we're going to finish this one off. Top stitching has now been finished. Really, really neat. I do love this method. I sometimes struggle with Welt pockets, but Shamballa, she always just makes it easy. All her layouts are easy. Let's finish this off though. So we're going to roll up the sides of our pocket. I'm going to clip along here. Nice and simple. So do the same for both sides. Fold up the sides of those edges. Because we're using a drop-in lining, we're not going to leave any of our pockets open today. Take it back to your machine and sew with at least 1/4 of an inch seam allowance either side to finish this one off. Then next up, we're going to work on our zipper pocket. So you're going to need some main panels, facings, linings, and your zipper. And there's our Welt pocket done. Lovely, looks really, really good, nice and neat. And I've just pressed the back just to make sure it's nice and flat. So we can pop this one aside for now. And we are going to move on with our zipper pocket. So again, optional if you want to use it. So pretty much the exact same process really as the Welt pocket. So we have our line 3/4 of an inch down and centered. We have our Welt pocket zip pocket facing, my goodness, with lines 3/4 an inch in all the way around. Line it up along those lines and centered, and then back to your machine. Sew the rectangle, then cut it, push your facing through to the back and press it, and then come back here. My zipper box is sewn, pressed, and I just used some hemming tape to hold the facing down. Now for our zipper pocket, we have our zipper with our zipper pull attached. We're going to get some double-sided tape. Very important in this, I think. Just makes things so much easier. And then at the same time, I'm going to get my zipper pocket lining and pop some double-sided tape top and bottom, just like we did in the Welt pocket one. There we go. Just to hold everything in place. Okay, we'll start off with our zipper. So we want to press our tape down as I desperately try to make it stick. Just doesn't want to, this one. Now decide which way you want your zipper pull closing. Try and make it the same as whatever you did for your back pocket. Center it beneath your zipper pocket window. And just press along. Don't be afraid to pull it back up and reposition it if you need to. We want to make sure it's nice and center. The more center and straight, the more professional. Give it a good press down, then flip it on over. I've sewn along the bottom of my zipper box. Now I'm going to flip it on over, just use my hands just to press that pocket down, peel off the backing, fold it on up, and same thing as I did for the base. I'm just going to go slightly below the facing level. I'd rather lose 1/2 centimetre on my pocket, but make sure that my top stitching will hold. Okay, once you're happy with that, you can pin it if you want to. Let's finish sewing. So around the 3 sides to finish off. Once you've done that, exactly like we did the Welt pocket, we're going to fold up the sides, and then with a 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, finish sewing down the sides of your zipper pocket, and then it is done. There we have our pockets. Now they are finished off, so we can get going with finishing our lining. So for the last part, we do need our lining top panels. Now's the time, if you haven't already, draw a line 3/4 of an inch down from the top, and it is the wider edge on this one. So 3/4 of an inch down. We're going to get these and pop them right sides together. So the lower side, not the 3/4 of an inch line side that you just drew, which does seem a little bit, normally it would be tapering off towards the top, but this one is slightly different shape to normal. Okay, clip along for both, so we're same process for both of these. Clip along, back to your machine, sew it with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, we'll flip it on up and top stitch. I'll come back to that though. So 1/4 of an inch across the top for both of those. Both of my lining tops are sewn on. Now we're going to flip up the top, push the seam allowance down, do the same for both of those, then go ahead and top stitch through the top of this lining part with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Go ahead and do the same for both of those. Now that our top lining is sewn, we need to put this lining together. So we're going to pop these right sides together, just really taking the time to line up the side seams. You also want to make sure that the top seam of our lining panel is level and even. We don't want them being off center. So just take the time. If you want to baste it first, by all means baste it. And even if you want to staple it, that can really help hold it together nicely. I just make sure that I clip that section first before I continue to clip the rest of it. So just even it out, clipping down. Now you would know that you'd notice there's cut-offs at the bottom there because we're doing box corners. So that's our last step of putting our lining together. And because we are doing a drop-in lining, we don't need to leave a turning hole anywhere, which is great. All right. Now a bit of a difference with this one. We're going to start off sewing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance up the top and then gradually increase it down to a 1 centimeter seam allowance by the time we hit the bottom. Do the same for both sides, so tapering that seam allowance bigger. Then at the bottom, sew across with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. No need to taper down the bottom. All right, I've sewn the sides and the bottom. Now all I'm going to do is just trim down these seam allowances. So I'm just about halving my seam allowance. And then when I get towards the top, especially before that fold over mark, I'm just going to taper off my cutting. And then the same for the other side. This is optional, this step. I just prefer to do it so we just reduce a bit of the bulk. Otherwise, lots and lots of layers can start to make it look a little bit uneven. And then the bottom, we can just cut straight across. No need to taper our cuts. Okay, let's finish off these box bottoms. So I'm just going to reach in between, separate the layers. We're going to line up those side seams, and I'm going to nest the seams, which just means that one set of seams is going one way, one set of seams is going the other way. I know a lot of people will separate and open out the seam allowances. Again, I just find this easier, leads to the same result. Same with the other side, just making sure that the seams stay straight. And, ooh, almost lost a fingernail. Then we're going to go back to the machine and sew these box corners with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then just trim the seam allowances. My bottom corners have been sewn. I'm just going to trim that down. There we go, 1 and 2. Now we are almost at the final step of assembly. So what we need to do is just make sure firstly that that 3/4 inch line is sewn. Go ahead and make sure that's done. Then get some double-sided tape and apply it just above that line. Always run out of tape at the worst time. There we go. But there's always a backup roll. Hopefully this one sticks better. Yes, I'm a little bit bitter about my double-sided tape not sticking. All right, so go ahead and peel off the backing, and then we're going to fold that top raw edge down to meet that marked line. Now when you come across to your side seams, I'll peel off the other side just to show you. We want to open out our seam allowance. Easier said than done. Fold that top edge down, so keep your seam allowances open. So go ahead and fold all the way around, then get your exterior, make sure it is now right sides out, and let's finish off this bag. Okay, we're up to the exciting bit. Now I'm just going to quickly pop a little line of double-sided tape along each of my side seams. I like to do this on my lining before I do the drop-in lining. I just find it holds it a little bit better. That way it doesn't shift around on me. It honestly probably does nothing, to be honest, but it makes me feel better. I've also marked the sides of my exterior just with some pins. Now we're going to drop this in. So the orientation of your lining. Traditionally, the lining zipper pocket would go to the back. There's no rules. You do you. If you want that zipper pocket at the front, go for it. I'm going to go to the back just because that's what I do. But there is no rules about it, and especially because we've done our Welt pocket, so we're going to have a pocket both sides. So I'm just going to line up my marked side seam on my exterior with the side seam of my lining. I'll leave the pin in there because invariably as I'm doing this it will fall out of place and then I'll have to start again. All right, then we do the other side. Line up the side seam. You want your lining equal height or ever so slightly lower than your exterior. Okay, my top stitching is now done, but I'm not going to even get too excited at the moment. Firstly, we need to finish our strap. Now you can do a shorter strap or you can do an adjustable strap. I am going to go with the adjustable strap, but we still use these strap end covers irrelevant of which. So just a piece of rectangular fabric, then we're going to get them right sides together and sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Then, as you can see, I've already done mine. What I'm going to go do is get some fabric glue and stick these down. It is going to be super hard to top stitch those otherwise. So I'm going to get some glue, hold it down, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll finish our strap. So do the same for both of your strap end covers. I've done my strap end covers. Let's pop them on to begin with. That way they are on, they're ready, and as long as your seam allowances were correct, they fit really nicely. Just make sure that the seam is on the same side for both. Okay, for an adjustable strap, this is same both sides. Gonna go up, over, and then I'm just gonna pull one of my strap ends up to cover that raw end. So you want it about, the raw end about halfway through. That feels good, or actually even a little bit more. That way we know that our rivet will get plenty of purchase on that. All right, that feels pretty good to me. So just make sure that when you put your rivet in, which is about halfway through, that's going to catch the raw end of the webbing. So just adjust it as you need. And then you're going to go, oops, and you'll punch your rivet and press. And then that end of the strap is done. So go ahead and do that if you're doing an adjustable one, and then come back. Okay, my rivet is set, and now it is time for the other end. So I did take my other strap end off. We're going to get our swivel clasp, pop it on, feed the raw end up and over. There we go. Just make sure it's not twisted. I'm going to pull that through just so it's sitting nicely. There we go. And then my raw end, I'm going to firstly get this on, because that would be a sad day if I forgot that. Pop my swivel clasp on, I forgot what the word was then, and I'm just going to tuck that into the underside of that. And same process pretty much, is just push and pull until you're happy with how it's sitting. I'll just pop a clip on to hold it in place, and then I'm just going to go punch my rivet. So if you're not doing adjustable strap, the process will be the same for that on the other end. So if you're just doing the swivel clasp, you won't be worrying about the tri-glide. All right, so I'm going to go pop my rivet in, and then this bag is done. There is my strap finished. I really love these strap end covers. Simple, but they just work and they make it look so neat. What a great way to tie in a bag. Now, are we ready for the final reveal? Why not? Ta-da! There is your Route 1970 all done, all finished, all stitched. And what an amazing bag. It's such a handy bag. I love a satchel style bag. Having so many pockets is awesome. And just the details that you do expect with Shamballa design. There's always so much thought out storage and techniques. But my gosh, this is such a great pattern. I've made it a few times now, and I could make this every week. I love it. It's a great unisex design. And hey, there's no time like the present to start Christmas sewing. I'm pretty sure someone in your life would love this. So there it is, your Route 1970. Well done if you've made it this far. And if you haven't, you're going to love the process. So thank you so much for joining me on this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you're going to be informed of all my future videos. I have so many that I have coming up, and I can't wait to bring you the next one. Happy sewing!